What's up guys, C2113 here, and today is going to be the video that I've been waiting to make for over a month. This is my review, my full review, of the Amico Power AIG2000 inverter generator. Okay, now this thing I've had for over a month, and I know in the first video I said I would make my review in about a week, but I just didn't think that would do it enough justice, do you guys enough justice, to actually give you an honest review. Because even if I used it every day in a week, that's not a realistic test of longevity and performance and that sort of thing. Especially since I don't go camping every other weekend, so I'm not going to be using this thing as much as somebody that goes camping, and as a result, I'm not going to get as many hours on it if I do such a short window. So I've had this thing for a little over a month, and I think it's finally time I can give you a good, honest opinion on this thing. Now, I have just over 21 and a half hours on here. So again, I will be updating this in the future when I break, something much higher, like 300 hours or something like that. But nonetheless, I've had to use this on several occasions, and so I just wanted to go over those different scenarios. So I've done several tests, and the biggest test, of course, was a local event we had, the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, and we had a it's a weekend event, and so it was a car show, so I was out there, and I had this thing running underneath our right next to our, I set up a tent, one of those canopy tents from Harbor Freight, and just to stay out of the sun. And I had this running all weekend, both days, probably 8 hours a day, to run a small fridge, a fan, and charge some devices. Basic stuff. Nothing over 300 watts, probably. And this thing performed amazingly well for that purpose. Again, the number of comments I got from Yamaha and Honda owners who were at the car show, who came up to me and actually, because at a car show, you always want to talk to people about your car and about their car and that sort of thing, but the number of people that actually came up to me and talked to me about this generator and said, man, that thing is quiet. This one guy's like, son, that generator is so quiet, man. Wow, that's quieter than my Honda. So the point is, I got a lot of compliments, and again, I was not expecting that, because I know this thing is quiet, but I don't have a Honda to compare it to, so although I like to think it's very quiet, I couldn't really make a judgment be super 100% sure that it was as quiet or even quieter than a Honda, right? The number of people that have commented on it kind of proved me otherwise, because they said, hey, I owned a Honda, I have several of them, and man, that thing's quiet, and how much did you pay for it? And so that right there was a big boost of confidence. But of course, how does it run? Because obviously, it doesn't matter how quiet it is if it's not reliable. Well, I'm already 2 oil changes in, so I did the first oil change after my 5-hour break-in period, and after that weekend of running, I decided I would change it again, because when I checked the dipstick, there were still some metal shavings in there, and hey, you know what, I got more oil than I need anyway, so I figured, why not change it again? And by doing that, I think I flushed out all the remaining break-in stuff that would be left over from your ring seating and all that. So now that I'm in, I can tell you, number one, this oil fill port system with the bottom, having a little passageway out the bottom, might actually be one of my most favorite designs on a generator. Now, a lot of these generators are going to have, the best design in my opinion, obviously, would be a door, right? A door that allows you to just get to it without removing any screws. But barring that, outside of that, this has to be one of the best design systems I've seen, just because it eliminates the need to raise the engine above the case or lower the case down here, reducing the strength, and develop a sort of like a ramp here to avoid oil going into the case. Well, this just allows gravity to work its magic, so that when I'm draining it, I just bring it to my bench like it is now, and then I just get it just over the edge. I move my collection pan down here on the floor, where it is right down here, and then I just tilt the generator with the drain cap off, and I'm good. And so the thing here really is that that's a very nice design, and I think a lot of thought went into that. And if you're going to be doing basic maintenance like that, again, it's very nice. The other thing I was going to talk about is that the spark plug hole here, the port to get to the spark plug, is also very easy to get into. Now, a lot of these generators, the casings are very tight and they try to make them as small as possible. But at the same time, you don't sacrifice, you don't gain really any benefit in terms of weight. You get a smaller footprint, sure, but as a result, it's much more difficult to really get to the spark plug, and it's just like, you know, finger gymnastics in there. But with this situation, it's quite easy to pull the coil off, the plug boot off, and then getting the spark plug out with the included tool. That's, I actually ended up using that a lot more than I thought I would. It's really simple, in, out, easy. And included spark plug too, although it is a Chinese plug. I haven't had any problems with it, and you know, basically after any long period of running, I just take it out, clean it with a little sea foam, scrub it off, dry it off, put it back in. I have had zero problems, and the gap is still where it should be. Another thing, unlike a lot of these inexpensive generators, the fuel tank is steel. All right, so now a lot of people might not like that, because especially cheap steel tanks, they may not be welded properly. But the thing is, if I've seen anything with these cheap generators, what happens is if you got a plastic tank, 9 times out of 10 don't have problems with leakage, okay? And so I am just so happy to know that this tank has got a steel, this tank is made out of steel. So again, another benefit there. And the last thing I'd say before we head out back is the fuel gauge. Now I know a lot of other ones have fuel gauges too, like your Harbor Freight and etc. But you got to remember how cheap this thing is, how inexpensive it is. Now when I say cheap, I don't mean cheap in quality, because as you probably already seen in both my overview and now this review, this thing doesn't skimp on the quality, okay? But when it comes to price, it certainly is inexpensive. So what does that mean? Well, for what that means is, for the price, even at its current price of $479, you're getting a very, very competitive value. You've got a steel tank. You've got a functional vent cap here. A lot of the cheaper ones have issues with their vent caps. You've got a built-in fuel gauge, which is, again, quite accurate. And even if it's not 100% perfect, it gives you more than enough of a ballpark to understand when you're full, when you're empty, and when you're somewhere in between. In addition, the design of the oil drain is very well done. And overall, the front panel design is also quite nice. In addition, you've got a dedicated fuel shutoff. You've got a pull-out choke, obviously, since it is separate from here. You've got a very well-functioning eco mode. You've got 2 plugs, and you've even got your DC ports in the standard Yamaha configuration. Now, all that being said, you've also got a very easy-to-work-with case. Pretty much the entire thing can be taken apart with a Phillips screwdriver, with the exception of the bottom bolts. And, of course, you've also got a very quiet generator. Even from the factory, if you do none of the additional sound deadening measures that I took when I did that video to demonstrate that, even if you do none of that, this thing is extremely quiet. So anyway, guys, let's go out back and I'll show you the output on this thing with my kilowatt and just how clean it is and how well it responds to loads, voltage drops, all that stuff. Alright guys, so this is not going to be a sound test, obviously. We're only literally about a foot from the generator, so obviously it's going to be a little bit louder. But here I have my kilowatt hooked up, and hopefully you can see the screen, because as it says, 125 volts is our idle at eco throttle. If you check out our frequency response, we're at exactly 60 hertz, give or take 0.1, so you're very close. Hardly any harmonic distortion, and obviously we're not drawing any power right now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is hook up our trusty load heat gun here. Base is 800 or 750 on the load. Make sure it's off. And then we'll go to 1500. So first, let's check voltage drop. I'll load it up to our 800 watt load. Voltage didn't even drop below 115. It was at 117. And again, remember, this is on eco throttle, not even on full. And of course, on eco, you're only supposed to have low or consistent loads, not being large. We've already jumped up all the way to 800 and it had no problem. So from this point, we'll jump to 1500 and take a look at our voltage drop again. Didn't even drop below 110. And even at almost full load, we're at 122 volts. That's very impressive performance. So we'll go ahead and idle back down. And now I'm going to go ahead and put it in regular throttle, not eco. But before I do that, actually, I'm going to go ahead and show you the frequency response. So again, we're at eco throttle, no load. I'll load it up to 800. Barely deviates. It goes down by 0.1. But we're still right at almost 60 hertz, as you can see. 59.9 is pretty darn close, I would say. Now we'll go ahead and kick it all the way up to 1800, or 1500, excuse me. We're still at no less than 59.9. Even at only 100 watts below full load. And then of course we let it idle back down. Now we go ahead and we can see how much current we're drawing, but of course that's not that important. So we're going to go ahead and put this into regular throttle, not eco. So now we'll see that the voltage is still 24.9, or 25. So now let's go ahead and turn this up to 800. Voltage barely dropped. It dropped to 123. Now let's go ahead and pick it up to 1500. Didn't even drop below 115. That's quite impressive. And now I'm going to go ahead and it's going to idle back down, and we'll go ahead and see the frequency response. We're at exactly 60 hertz here. 800 watts. 59.9. Again, barely any deviation, and it recovers at 60 hertz, and it hovers no lower than 59.9. And if I go ahead and kick it all the way up to 1500, again, we're even at 1500 watts, we get no lower than 59.8. So overall, I'm quite impressed with this thing. I hope you guys are too. The output is really clean. It's extremely quiet given its output, and certainly given its price. And I cannot say enough good things about this. For example, I had an issue with my rear cover on this thing with the exhaust. There was a tiny little crack right around here on the back. I contacted Amico. They said no problem. And 5 days later, they sent me a new part. No questions asked. They just asked me for my address, and they said, sure, no problem. So, again, guys, if you want to buy from an American company that's going to give you customer support and parts support as well, and you don't want to pay a whole lot, honestly, I can't say anything bad about Amico. So, we'll go check them out. You know, I'm pretty impressed. And while the product selection isn't that big, if you're looking for a 1600 watt continuous 2000 watt max inverter generator, you can't go wrong with this thing. So, in my opinion, this is definitely worth the money, even at its higher price. Now, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this review was helpful. Hit subscribe if you want to see more. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Thanks for watching.